Some things just look simply genius on paper, like the 2012-2013 Los Angeles Lakers super team. Kobe Bryant, Steve Nash, Dwight Howard, Pau Gasol, and Meta World Peace. A roster so stacked it had to dominate. Or the Fire Festival, the luxury party of the century. Or Disney's Galactic Star Cruiser, the Star Wars hotel experience that seemed destined to print money. But when these can't-miss ideas finally hit reality, well, the results spoke for themselves. Hasbro had one of those moments too. In their heads, a super team from the future, piloting bright, high-tech vehicles that could combine into an impenetrable fortress, sounded like a guaranteed home run with the kiddies, like it was gonna be golden. Unfortunately, once that idea was actually put to plastic, this super team turned out to be less of a force and a whole lot more of a farce. For a kid growing up in the 80s, the year 2000 felt like some far-off sci-fi milestone. In our heads, by the time the 21st century rolled around, we wouldn't be stuck with wheels on the ground. We'd have jets strapped to our backs, hoverboards, and flying cars everywhere. Even the most basic stuff would be futuristic. Coke would have a new formula, and toilet paper replaced by 3 seashells, obviously. The future held endless possibilities we could fantasize about until the cows came home. And that was just in real life. Now, imagine what could be in store for America's highly trained Special Mission Force, who in the 80s were already the cutting edge of military tech. Coming off the powerhouse year of 1986 with bangers like the lightning-fast Stun with its dual multi-directional gunner pods, the sleek, computer-guided and forward-wing swept fighter jet Conquest X-30, and the rolling twin-cannon firepower of the Havoc. The line felt unstoppable. So of course, the folks at Hasbro had to be chomping at the bit, wondering what on earth they could release next that would top all of that. And their grand idea for 1987, aside from a rolling command center and a humongous space vehicle launch complex, was a sub-team. Okay, yeah, that doesn't sound too exciting. Let me rephrase that. Their grand idea for 1987 was a unit of highly trained specialists, each piloting one-of-a-kind, state-of-the-art prototype vehicles, a force from the future tasked with battling Cobra. Battle Force 2000. So, here's the sales pitch. A team of brand new Joes all armed with high-tech weaponry that didn't resemble any firearm that we'd ever seen. Each one driving a futuristic-looking vehicle unlike anything in the line up to that point. Okay, sounds pretty cool already, right? But wait, that wasn't the main selling point. The real hook of this set was that these 6 vehicles could merge into one compact, formidable, and supposedly impenetrable battle fortress. When I first heard about this, I remember thinking how pretty awesome it sounded. Unfortunately, it also sounded pretty expensive. Because for a little kid like me whose allowance only stretched far enough for action figures, the thought of having to buy 6 whole new vehicles felt like the impossible dream. Something I could admire, fantasize about, and that was pretty much where it ended. So you can imagine my sheer shock when, on some random weekend, I walked into my favorite hobby toy store at the time, Nova Fontana, and saw 6 brand new figures I had never laid my eyes on before, just hanging around behind the counter, all available for sale. Not with their vehicles, but in neatly carded 2-packs. Avalanche and Blaster, Dodger and Knockdown, and Blocker and Maverick. Battle Frickin' Force 2000. I couldn't hand over my hard-saved moolah fast enough, and before I knew it, I had the entire Future Force in my grubby little fingers. But when I got home, tore them open, and actually looked at them, they were, just okay. Visually, the standouts for me were Blocker with his dark gray uniform and bronze-ish detailing, and Blaster, the bright green guy with the removable mask. Dodger and the baby-faced big-headed Avalanche were just mid for me, and bringing up the rear, Knockdown with his odd one-eyed exposed helmet, and Maverick, the jet pilot whose outfit made him look more like a deep-sea diver and who even back then felt like Hasbro's slightly desperate attempt to cash in on Top Gun. But first impressions aside, let's actually get to know each one of these dudes on a more personal level, shall we? Who were the men of Battle Force 2000? Thankfully, their file cards gave us great character profiles for each member, and while we're at it, let's dig into their vehicles too, including the tech and weaponry they packed, courtesy of the website myuselessknowledge.com. Because even though I never owned any of them, those machines were arguably intended to be the main attraction of the team. First up, Avalanche, the team's resident cold weather specialist. Born Ian Costello in Madawaska, Maine, he grew up in a family of poachers and smugglers but chose a different path and enlisted in the US Army. Discipline wasn't exactly his strong suit, but his survival instincts were unmatched thanks to a childhood spent roaming the woods with a rifle. In one training exercise where recruits were dropped into the wild with only a knife and a compass, most trainees staggered back after a week, while Avalanche turned up a month later 200 miles away, lounging in a motel and spending money he'd earned selling furs. Avalanche comes armed with a P480 Sub-Zero stun gun laser rifle equipped with a strange disc near the muzzle. An odd design, but pretty par for the course for the future tech of the team. More important than what he's holding though is what he's driving, the Dominator Snow Tank. This thing runs on a hybrid ski and wheel setup and packs serious firepower, including a 152mm XM175 gun missile launcher and twin 7.62mm machine guns. And while a snow tank may sound like a recipe for sinking straight through the ice, the Dominator has a clever trick, a removable outer shell that reveals a more compact, six-wheeled armored cannon vehicle underneath. Now, aside from sharing his name with a certain boombox Autobot, Blaster is Battle Force 2000's ground effect vehicle operator, a guy practically born to pilot hovercrafts. Real name Brian R. Davis from Panama City, Florida. He built his first hovercraft at age 13 using mail order plans from Popular Mechanics. And by his mid-teens, he was already designing his own. When the civilian world didn't exactly line up to buy hovercrafts though, he took his talents to South Beach. Just kidding. He took his talent to the one place that actually cared, the military, which eventually landed him in Battle Force 2000 as the pilot of their advanced hovercraft, the Vindicator. Blaster's definitely a little obsessive and single-minded, but that's exactly why he's good. He'll push a machine to the limit just to prove what it can do. He's also a microwave technician, and he carries a boxy silver DK528 laser gun on the battlefield because, of course, future tech means square guns. And yes, just like his namesake, Blaster is also a loud rock and roll dude that thankfully does not shoot out tapes from his chest, but which probably explains why he loves vehicles that make a ton of noise. Speaking of which, the Vindicator is an arrowhead-shaped military hovercraft loaded with firepower. It sports two side-mounted, vertically pivoting 5.56mm machine guns, a pivoting anti-armor gun system, and 4 Whistler LG-9 laser-guided hex-finned missiles. And fun fact, Hasbro's own designers called this thing the Iron because, in their words, it looked like something you could iron clothes with. I mean, they're not wrong. Anyway, next up is the mechanized recon specialist, Blocker. And if anyone was born to handle an experimental armored vehicle, it's this guy. Born David B. McCarthy in Boston, he spent 3 wild years driving a taxi, surviving 7 armed robberies, delivering 3 backseat babies, and even plunging through a collapsing roadway. After all that, joining the army actually sounded safer. Once enlisted, Blocker proved to be a natural behind the wheel, becoming qualified to drive every wheeled vehicle in the army and serving as a test driver for multiple prototype machines at Aberdeen Proving Grounds. Armed with an XL-13 light refraction submachine laser pistol, Blocker, like Jesus, took the wheel of the Eliminator, a heavily armed 4-wheel drive armored beast built for speed, stability, and raw firepower. The Eliminator is basically Blocker's dream ride. Its main armament is a set of turret-mounted, remote-operated dual 20mm repeating auto-load cannons, controlled from a separate gunner's station. Pop that turret off and you reveal 6 Wasp OG-6 optically guided surface-to-air missiles for serious anti-air punch. Add in a pair of sound deflector pivoting laser guns and an FLIR guided infrared laser cannon, and you've got one mean machine. The Eliminator is an absolute monster on wheels, and Blocker is the one guy skilled enough, or more importantly, crazy enough to tame it. Now, as high-tech as all these vehicles sounded, at the end of the day, they were all still just machines. And machines need maintenance. And that's where armor vehicle maintenance expert Dodger comes in. He's a guy who knows every piece of high-tech hardware inside out, but isn't afraid to ditch the gadgets and trust his instincts. Real name Richard Renwick from South Bend, Indiana, Dodger has mastered every modern driving aid the Army could throw at him. Holographic night vision systems, thermal imaging range finders, Doppler radar, multi-mode situational displays, you name it. But what really sets him apart is that he doesn't need any of it. He was driving tracked vehicles long before any of this tech existed. And if things go sideways, and trust me, they really do, more on that later, Dodger will pop the hatch, put his face in the wind, and steer using pure guts and experience. On the battlefield, he carries an ultrasonic photon rifle with an oddly spiked guard on the rear grip because, hey, it never hurts to look a little hardcore in the future. Dodger's vehicle is the Marauder, a hybrid motorcycle tank and easily one of the strangest machines in the lineup. It's essentially a half-track with a detachable forward motorcycle section and a heavily armed rear tank segment. Between the two halves, the Marauder packs a direct-fire kinetic energy gun platform, a big-bore integrated 25mm anti-armor cannon, twin Bushmaster auto-load 25mm coaxial cannons, and a Tank Smasher OG-17 optical aimed infrared homing missile. It may look bizarre, but Dodger was specially trained to wrangle all this experimental firepower, making him the perfect guy to pilot it. Next up is Knockdown, the team's electronic detection systems expert. The guy you want when radar glitches, sensors die, and targeting computers decide to take the day off. Real name Blaine M. Gonsalves from San Francisco. He brings serious tech chops to the team thanks to his work at Aberdeen Proving Grounds, where he tested top secret weapon systems. Knockdown can repair radar arrays, infrared sensors, and target tracking computers under battlefield pressure, which is essential in a job where Murphy's Law is basically standard protocol. But his codename doesn't really come from fixing things. It comes from knocking things down or out of the sky. Off-duty Knockdown literally plucks butterflies and moths out of midair with his fingers. And he's an avid skeet shooter who insists on using a bolt-action rifle because shotguns make it too easy. He's also an authority on air disasters, possibly to cope with his own fear of flying. On the battlefield, he carries an experimental X-128 ground-to-air pistol because you can never have too many weapons to take down flying objects. But it's Knockdown's Battle Force 2000 ride that really brings his skills to their fullest realization, where he can sweep the skies clear of Cobra aircrafts with, well, the Sky Sweeper, a compact anti-aircraft tank designed for tracking, targeting, and swatting Cobra aircrafts out of the sky. It packs rerun dual 20mm repeating auto-load cannons, 2 zap-directed energy laser-guided weapons, and 4 Jane radar homing tactical missiles. Fast reacting and loaded with high-tech targeting gear, the Sky Sweeper is the perfect machine for Knockdown to put both his detection skills and his sky blasting talents to work. And as an added bonus, when the tech inevitably acts up, he's the one guy who can fix it mid-fight. And finally, what well-rounded team would be complete without the independent, unconventional guy who refuses to follow the rules, or would happily trade away a generational player for someone best known for wearing street clothes? I give you Maverick. Battle Force 2000's fighter pilot, a dude who constantly feels the need for speed and yes, can tell you when you've lost that loving feeling. Oh wait, sorry. Wrong Maverick. This Maverick, Thomas P. Kiley from Ida Grove, Iowa, literally grew up in the cockpit of an old Stearman biplane strapped in beside his crop duster mom with a jelly sandwich and a water gun in hand as they buzzed above the cornfields. By the time he reached the Air Force Academy, flying was second nature and he graduated at the top of his class. Maverick then volunteered for every experimental program he could find, becoming one of the rare pilots qualified to operate the Air Force's most advanced tech. Programmable keyboard controls, voice-activated weapon systems, even open-loop biocybernetic analysis computers. Combine that with gymnast-level reflexes, massive G-force tolerance, and eyesight that basically beats the chart. It's no surprise that Maverick was scooped up for Battle Force 2000's resident, Flyboy. Sorry, Blaster. Hovercrafts don't count. Armed with a laser pistol with a rounded energy chamber, Maverick is comfortable in anything with wings. But his machine of choice is the Vector, a top-tier jet fighter packed with next-generation firepower. It carries twin quick-blast 7.62mm coaxial machine guns, 2 wing-mounted APC-controlled 20mm cannons, and 4 AIM-33 Narrow Sparrow air-to-air missiles. It also features a detachable surveillance ballistics pod armed with dual 7.62mm repeating autoload machine guns. Whether he's performing combat runs or showing off at an air show, the Vector is the perfect showcase for Maverick's precision flying, love of experimental tech, and lifelong obsession with being in the air. And speaking of obsession, trying to figure out the darn algorithm has been quite the obsession for YouTube creators like me. Likes, comments, shares, and subs, all great and very much appreciated. But could it be that the real answer is even simpler than that? Watch time? Can you help me out and see if this is true? If you're digging this story, when you're done, go ahead and watch another, and another, and another. I mean, you could just keep my channel playing in the background as you go about your day. Let's crack this algorithm puzzle together. It would be very much appreciated, as well as any other way you choose to help me out. So, thank you very much. Now, while we could stop here with the original Battle Force 2000 roster, Hasbro wasn't quite done tinkering with the future. The following year, they added one more member and one more vehicle to round out the team. So let me introduce to you the communications expert and resident Comtech trooper, DJ, and by default, I guess, his Battle Force 2000 ride, the Pulverizer. DJ, real name Thomas R. Rossi III from Providence, Rhode Island, was actually one of Boston's hottest disc jockeys before enlisting. If a piece of equipment had transistors, knobs, switches, or radio wave capability, he could run it, fix it, and probably make it drop a beat. Once in the Army, he became an expert in their most advanced communication systems, which made him a perfect fit for the team's tech-heavy mission profile. Because, I mean, even the most highly advanced battle force has gotta chat. When things get messy on the battlefield, the team relies on DJ to keep the signal alive. Like, he could rebuild a transmitter from spare parts if he had to. Of course, once he was on the air, the only thing they didn't always love was the non-stop chatter. And that brings us to the Pulverizer, a late addition to the Battle Force 2000 lineup that never had an officially designated driver. So with no volunteers, DJ was often assigned driving duties. The Pulverizer is a compact battle tank powered by a 400 horsepower water-cooled V6 diesel engine. It rides on hardened steel dual rotating quick turn treads, sports an infrared night sight scanner up front, and includes a command seat, tow hook, and a flexible, high heat resistant energy duct feeding its main cannon. And that cannon is the Pulverizer's status symbol, a massive laser weapon sometimes described in Joe lore as a railgun, mounted on ribbed steel support arms and packed with futuristic components like a Rippler diffusion nozzle, a laser blast compression diverter, and a rotational counterbalance system. In short, it's a weird little tank with a very big gun. Okay, so now that we're acquainted with the team, let's get into their adventures, which honestly wasn't much, since the Battle Force 2000 toys dropped in that awkward window around the 1987 animated movie where only a few rawhides made the cut, and the end of the Sunbow series thanks to the movie's lukewarm reception. Long story short, aside from some animated segments in their own toy commercial, as far as the cartoons were concerned, Battle Force 2000 was non-existent. They did manage to show up in the Marvel Comics though, making their debut in issue number 68. Battle Force 2000 is introduced as a military testing and research unit stationed in the icy, fictional world of Fruzenland. When Fruzenland's government starts negotiating with Cobra, a group of Joes is sent in to ensure the team's safety. I mean, considering their vehicles can merge into an impenetrable fortress, how much protection do they really need? Anyway, during the team's downtime, tensions spike and even escalate into an actual fistfight. Luckily, this shocking lack of team chemistry isn't their fault. It's Cobra's, as it's discovered that the enemy is broadcasting a signal that triggers aggression and loss of control in anyone not wearing ear protection. Ironically, it's the team's resident rock and roll junkie, Blaster, who figures it out because he was jamming to his tunes via headphones. So with plugs in place and heads clear, Battle Force 2000 charges into action, destroying the terror drones generating Cobra's paranoia waves, and arrives just in time to save the Joes and help defeat Cobra, after which they're assigned as an unofficial division of the G.I. Joe team. Anyway, after their fairly impressive debut, Battle Force 2000 only made sporadic, mostly random appearances. Avalanche teamed up with Snowjob and Frostbite in the Bering Strait between Alaska and the USSR to take down another Cobra Terrordrome. Maverick served as Wild Bill's co-pilot, flying a C-130 right into Sierra Gordo to drop off a small Joe rescue team in order to retrieve the US ambassador. And the whole squad joined in on the fun of the Cobra Island Civil War, and later fought the Dreadnoks in New Jersey alongside Mutt and his dog Junkyard. See, Larry Hama apparently wasn't the biggest fan of Battle Force 2000, so when Hasbro gave him the green light to unalive Joes that were no longer on toy shelves, the force from the future suddenly didn't have much of one. During a major battle in the Middle Eastern country of Benzine, Battle Force 2000 is deployed, and while navigating through massive oil storage tanks, enemy fire ignites the oil and the resulting explosion instantly wipes out the team. Blocker is blocked out, Blaster blasted, Avalanche is buried, Knockdown gets knocked down, and Maverick, well, he gets rickrolled. Kidding. He dies too. Even their newest member, DJ, who literally made his official comic debut in the same issue, isn't spared as he too ends up dead. Only one member survives. Dodger, the Marauder driver and armored vehicle maintenance expert who, true to his name, actually dodges death. And just like that, Battle Force 2000 was no more. Talk about a fall from grace. What was once the much touted highlight of the 1987 Joe lineup was suddenly gone, both from the comics and the toy aisles. And worse, their deaths were even welcomed by a lot of fans. So, what exactly happened? Remember that whole looks good on paper, fails in execution thing? Well, when it came to the Battle Force 2000 toys, Hasbro really dropped the ball. In a curious marketing move, they went against tradition and sold the drivers separately from their vehicles. Great for someone like me who had already accepted that the vehicles were financially out of my reach, but for everyone else, it sucked balls. Because now you had to spend even more just to complete the set. But let's say you did manage to get everything, drivers, vehicles, the whole futuristic arsenal. Everything's good then, right? Well, not exactly. See, the entire pitch behind Battle Force 2000 was the promise of 6 futuristic vehicles that merged into a formidable fortress of the future. Except in reality, they didn't. What you actually got were 6 vehicles with detachable parts, pieces that you could loosely arrange into what amounted to an L-ish shaped pile of parts. Nothing snapped, nothing locked, nothing merged, and that impenetrable part, Yeah, that probably just referred to the only two sides of the so-called fortress. Major failure in execution. Apparently though, according to R&D designer Guy Cassaday, the original plan really was better as it would include a central base that all the detachable vehicle components would attach to, creating a sturdier, more legit future fortress. But that plan got scrapped when the dudes at marketing couldn't figure out a profitable way to package and sell the main base. And so, randomly arranged non-interlocking parts it was, all in the name of saving a buck. Not even the last-minute edition of DJ and the Pulverizer could square things up. Before the original line ended, the sole survivor, Dodger, got one last hurrah, a freshly repainted version 2 in 1990, with a new designation as a heavy ordnance operator, swapping in his Marauder tank cycle for an oversized arsenal and a comically large backpack, as part of a new team, the Sonic Fighters. And despite being deceased, DJ also got one final repainted release, this time in a mail-away Arctic Commandos 4-pack alongside Stalker, Sub-Zero, and a Snow Serpent. And that was it. Pansit, the last we'd hear of Battle Force 2000. Until, fast forward 3 decades later, Battle Force 2000 made a triumphant return with all 6 original members, Avalanche, Blaster, Blocker, Dodger, Knockdown, and Maverick, updated with modern 25th anniversary sculpting and articulation as part of an exclusive Force of Battle 2000 box set from the official G.I. Joe Collectors Club at JoeCon 2017. And thankfully, DJ wasn't left out. He received his own exclusive Ultimate Enemies 2-pack alongside his evil twin, his Brazilian repaint counterpart, Curaçao. And while none of the traditional Battle Force 2000 vehicles made a comeback, at least the new Dodger and Maverick had rides, the BF-2000 Marauder snowmobile, and the Vector X-36 fighter jet, repaints of the 83 Polar Battle Bear and the 86 Conquest X-30, respectively. Anyway, in a surprising twist, from what I can tell this time around, maybe it was a case of absence making the heart grow fonder, or that warm fuzzy nostalgia that makes everything old feel new again. The excitement over these guys returning was in full force. Okay, fine, maybe I'm exaggerating a bit, but seriously, Battle Force 2000 definitely seemed welcomed back into the fandom with open arms. As for me, while that exclusive box set was once again a little too rich for my wallet, I was genuinely happy to see my boys from the future back in the present. And I'm still holding out hope that one day, Battle Force 2000 makes another comeback, this time in the 6-inch classified line, and hopefully not as another exclusive and expensive box set, okay, Hasbro? See, unlike a lot of fans back in the day, I never hated Battle Force 2000 because I never owned what was probably their biggest failing point, the vehicles. I was perfectly happy just having the full team in hand. These guys were a high point for me at a time when my overall enthusiasm for collecting G.I. Joe was slowly winding down. In fact, when I eventually drifted away from reenacting battlefield scenarios with my little plastic soldiers, most of these dudes successfully transitioned into my new imaginary world, my Intergalactic Wrestling Federation. Yup, Battle Force 2000 became my federation's version of the Click, or DX, or the NWO, long before any of those were a thing in real life. I mean, am I a visionary or what? Too bad I didn't have someone like Sergeant Slaughter to keep them all in line. Speaking of which, if you want to hear more about the guy who single-handedly proved my G.I. Joe wrestling mashup wasn't such a far-fetched idea, you can check out the Sarge's story here. Or if you want to watch my latest video, that's over here. Either way, thanks for watching, and I hope to hear from you in the comments below. What are your thoughts on Battle Force 2000? Go ahead and tell me your story.